Yeah, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the November meeting, the ICB, and I'd like to call.
I'm going to go in for starting video.
Okay, and oh, I see that Louisa is up here. Okay, so first order of business, I'd like to have a motion to approve the October minutes. Can we have a?
So moved.
And are there any comments or anybody have any editing to do? If not, could I have a second?
Second.
And then so moved. Thank you. Next up is we have a report by Louisa. We're taking advantage of the fact that she's available here on Wednesday, and Beth Cashel is usually giving the report, and Beth wasn't available as well. So now Louisa is going to give us her report on Southold. And please go ahead, Louisa. You gotta unmute.
I'm having to use my husband's computer because for some reason I have to put a new Zoom version
Okay.
on my computer. So an update as far as highway is concerned. The town engineer and the highway superintendent were out here, and one of the things that they were looking at was the seawall, the road by the Three Sisters. The town engineer is in the process of hiring a, what did he tell me? A design engineer for the seawall. In order to be able to improve that road, they have to fix the seawall first. The highway superintendent said that the paving project on the island are really pending the return of the asphalt bid for this year to see what the prices are on that. They're making contact with paving contractors that routinely work on Fisher's Island so that we can get cost competitive bids rather than the cost prohibitive pricing that are accustomed to getting from our mainland contractor. They're looking to focus on some of the roads where the drainage work would be minimal or non-existent, and sidewalks have already been addressed. Drainage, the last trip over, we met with the highway crew. I'm reading from his email. We met with the highway crew and surveyed the most common and plaguing problems. We've identified longstanding issues with relatively simple solutions to 3 separate systems on Fox Avenue, 1 system on Avenue B, and 3 locations on Crescent. They're working on developing an RFP for contractors to assist with these installs, and they're working on getting the highway equipment set up to move materials to Fisher's Island and get a supply of drainage material to Fisher's Island. They're doing the same thing on the mainland. Sidewalks, she's looking to look at tackling the Fort Stretch as it leads to the school. Part of the problem with that is removing the sidewalk from one side of the street to make the project financially viable. We also need support from the homeowners along there because it may involve taking down trees, because many of the sidewalk problems there are due to the roots from the trees. And also many people on Whistler would lose their walkways down to the road because they'll only have walkways where they have to put handicap accessible paths. So that is one of the issues. So hopefully all the neighbors can put in their 2 cents about that. The road to waste management that people keep asking me about. The town has spoken with the Ferry District, spoken with me. They are not going to pave that road or fix that road. As far as they're concerned, it's not a town road. It's owned, the property's owned by the town, but the road itself was never improved to become a town road. The town only maintains roads that have been brought up to a certain standard. And they basically suggested that maybe the Ferry District, who manages that property, do something about that road, because the use of that road is mainly for properties that they rent out to contractors and waste management. Moving on, as far as the community housing fund, I've had unofficial word.
Louisa, can I ask you a question about the sidewalk? So you just suggested that the neighbors on Whistler Avenue get together and tell you,
Whistler and
yeah,
Greenwood,
and tell you, or how do they get together and and voice their priorities then? In other words, how,
I
Yeah.
think mostly it's for them to understand what it means to have those sidewalk repairs. And if they have any issues with that, to let me know, or let the highway superintendent know. And just
well,
sort of be prepared.
can they decide to have the sidewalks improve the sidewalk on the other side of the street and not bother with the ones at their houses, and then they keep their access to the road? Is that could be something they
That's
think?
probably an option that could be put before the highway superintendent. I mean, certainly make it easier. I'm not sure that the people that Fisher's Island would particularly like that solution. But it's something that can be
I guess what
suggested.
I'm asking you is, once there's a consensus, should people go to you, or, because they don't really have access to Michael Collins like you do.
I mean, it would be lovely if ICB wanted to, I mean, I'm happy to take information, but maybe ICB can start spreading the word and people can put comments back to them.
Okay, all right, but then we'll direct the traffic to you then, so you're informed. And
Yes.
and as far as you're mentioning there's other sidewalks and roads, did they mention if there's anything in the budget for now? Or, I mean, what kind of timeline do we have for any of these projects?
I honestly don't think it will happen in 2023. But I don't know. It depends on what the asphalt bids are. They're not
And
going to redo sidewalks unless they're doing roads right now, because every time they do a road, they have to bring the sidewalk up to ADA compliance. And so
you're
they're trying to
talking-
do it also with drainage projects, because the drainage projects usually require that they have to do some repairs to the road.
And that road by Three Sisters, they're not going to do anything on that for a while?
That's a road that the town engineer is trying to hire how did he phrase it? The design engineer for the seawall, because the seawall has to be repaired before the road can be repaired.
Okay, and so we're subject to their whatever they have time to do. Is that so? Anyway,
The
we
money's
can't tell.
been bonded, $850,000 has been bonded for that repair for the seawall on the
Okay.
road.
Yeah.
But it's getting the plans for doing it and then executing the plans. So they'll have to go out for
Okay.
bids after that.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Okay, go on then.
Can I ask one question about what
Yeah.
about that huge hole, Louisa, opposite the Red Barn, that the Lighthouse Works artist fell into on her bike and knocked out all her teeth?
Oh my
That's the
God.
first I'm hearing of it. Did they send a letter to the town clerk about that and the highway superintendent?
I'm not sure that a Lighthouse Works artist knows to do that. She just took a huge tumble into that. This was like 2 months ago. But she
Oh.
went over in a teeth stretcher. She went over to the hospital and had her face banged up and her teeth, because you can't see that pothole until you're in it if you're on a bike.
Yeah, I mean,
And
this is the first I'm hearing of it, Staley. If
Well,
someone
they're
could put in a
two-
letter, if someone would put in a letter in,
But Louisa, there are two skinny yellow cones sticking up out of that hole now. So is Southold going to come put a plate on or something?
I
we
have
can't-
no idea, Staley, because it's the first I'm hearing of it, so I don't know anything about it. I can ask, but it would help to have a letter written so that I have that to say, hey, look, this is here, this is a problem.
They didn't notice it when they did their walkabout?
I wasn't with them.
Okay.
And I hopefully the highway crew who took them around showed them it, but I don't know.
Louisa, can we, in the future though, get a heads up on when they are visiting, so that we can, somebody locally can accompany this team of theirs, so we can point out some certain things that they might not be aware of? Because I think, last time they were here, we didn't really have a heads up on that. We didn't have anybody to see them. And
Well, they had the highway crew out here with them who,
well, with the highway
I
crew,
would hope,
I'm talking about residents here. I think they need some resident input.
two of the people on the highway crew are residents, but yes, I will, when I
they
know
are.
they're coming, I will let you know. I don't always know when they're coming out.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. That'd be helpful.
They
Thank
were
you.
there today at that spot on the island. Sorry, they were there. Town was there.
Who was there?
The town
Our
truck.
highway
and
crew, or the highway crew from the island, or the people coming
The
over from Long
red
Island?
Town of South Hall truck, and they were marking the side of both sides of that road from the corner, from the Red Barn up to the thrift shop.
So it looks like the highway crew is doing something about it, but I will have to touch base with them because I don't know.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you, Louisa.
I have a
Um,
question for Louisa also. Louisa, you mentioned something about Fox, Avenue B and Crescent. Are those?
Those
three-
are avenues where they said they had drainage projects they were looking into.
I see. And was there signage that they were contemplating at the same time? Because there certainly is a need for signage at those locations.
I do not think they were looking into signage at all.
So if we wanted to take advantage of the fact that they're looking at the location, perhaps ICB should put together a request for signage and get it to them.
That's a
If-
good
if
idea.
That is what if the island wants signage there, yes.
Okay,
But what you really should do is you should send it to the Transportation Commission or the town board, who will then send it on to the Transportation Commission, and they look at different intersections when you ask them whether you can have stop signs or yield signs to see if they think it's necessary.
Yeah.
okay.
And George, I
Improving the
know that there's
crosswalk.
some stop signs you've asked for that they don't think is necessary because the complaint is about speed.
This is not one of them. This is an old issue. Crosswalk indicate paintings have totally disappeared at several locations. No point getting into the details. I think we should.
Well, if I were you, I would
Mhm.
put the details in writing and send it to the town where you want it.
George, I'll
Um,
get together,
Good.
together with you. We'll figure out how to communicate all
Sure,
our issues, okay?
sure.
And Louisa, you were going to talk about the vote as
Can
well?
I just ask you to make sure that, I know stop signs have been requested in some spots, and I think you need to sort of get the tenor of the island to see if people really are on board for some of those stop signs, because I've gotten some feedback on some requests on stop signs from people on the island that aren't in favor of them in those spots.
Okay,
So moving on, I have heard unofficially, don't know what the results are, but the Community Housing Fund, the 0.5% passed in the town. I would direct most of those questions to Beth because thank you for this, the community board writing a letter to the town and managed to get someone on the advisory board of that fund. Beth Cashel, we asked her if she would do it, and she said, yes, it can't be an elected official, it has to be a non-elected official, so she was perfect for this position. They're continually working on this fund. There's not a plan yet. There's more details on it, but Beth, I just lost you. What happened? Can you hear me?
I can
Yeah,
hear you
Can
now.
talking.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, I lost the screen for some reason. Anyway, it's best to address those questions to Beth because she's actually on the advisory board and she can be more specific on what's happened there.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll have her report at the next meeting then about this.
Good. And I think,
Okay.
and Jane will be posting stuff on it too, as it's shared
Okay.
with Beth and I.
Okay.
Some good news is the town's been working with the state with the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and Jody Giglio's office has been very helpful there. And we're hoping to set up a satellite office out here that would not be open all the time, but would be open on certain dates that could pretty much do everything but road tests. Well, it's not a done deal yet, but we're hoping this late spring, summer, we can have it up and running. The details are being worked out now. We had a big Zoom meeting. Beth and I were on it with the supervisor and people from DMV and people from Jody's office, and Staley Sidnowie as not as ICB, but somewhat of that, but mostly as the community center director, because we're hoping that it will be housed there. And community center Staley has been wonderful in helping us figure that out. Beth will be the point person on that. The town asked her if she was willing as part of her job to be sort of your DMV manager, and she agreed to that, which was wonderful. So,
Great.
thanks to Beth and Jody Giglio's office and the community center for helping, hopefully making this happen. And I'm trying to think what else I have here. I think that's it.
Well, good. Thank you. Excellent, Louisa. Thank you for that. It was nice
And
to
I'm
have
sorry
you.
I'm not more help on the road sidewalk stuff, but I really don't know
Okay,
much
well,
more.
we'll call you up. Maybe we can get organized on this and figure out the best way to communicate our needs. But anyway, thank you. And next up, we have Christian Arsenal.
John,
Yes?
can everybody just look at the chat for a minute? Because Diane Crary is a very good point.
Okay.
Um,
go ahead. Let me-
So she said, Louisa, the road going to the transfer station is also the road going to the shed where the town has their shop and parking area. The town barn that's somewhat falling down is right there. And so
and the-
therefore, half the usage of this road is being used by the town. Therefore, there should be some involvement.
Well,
That's
then
good.
for the
first,
road.
That's-
they're going to move, eventually the highway barn is planned to move over where the, not move, but a new one, because that building is really just in a state of disrepair and it's not worth fixing. It's in a floodplain. So what I've been told, and this is not just here, it's in the rest of the town of Southold, the town is not responsible for maintaining roads that are not brought up to a certain standard. And they're just not going to maintain that road.
That's-
Okay, well, we have Jeb going to talk about that later today as well, but maybe we can figure out something and maybe get Southold to be a bit more cooperative on this, since if they do have their own buildings on this road, I can't imagine how they can't contribute. So that's what I think. Anyway, thank you, Louisa. Christian?
Great, thanks, John. Thank you, everybody, for having me tonight. First, I would like to express my extremely heartfelt gratitude for everybody's participation and voter turnout in our 2 referendums yesterday. It was our most well-attended vote that we've had since I've been here. We had a well-attended public hearing last Tuesday with both people in person at the school and online. So that is also very much appreciated. I can share the results of the 2 propositions. First off, there were 132 total votes cast. There was 117 in-person votes yesterday, 15 absentees. We still have 3 outstanding absentee ballots that have a week to get to us as long as they're postmarked before yesterday. And for Proposition 1, which was the Reservoir Road proposition, that passed 117 votes in favor and 15 against. We will, as a next step for that piece of land, at our next Board of Ed meeting on Wednesday, November 16th at 5 p.m., our board will be reviewing the 8 bids that were submitted for that piece of land. And we will be working with our school attorney and our board to determine which bid is in the best interest of the district. So for those of you interested in that, a reminder, all of our meetings are available both in person to the public and live streamed. The information can be found on fishersisland.net and our school website, which is fischool.com. So that is the next step for there. For Proposition 2, which was Winthrop Drive, that one passed 98 votes in favor and 34 votes opposed. So we will begin working with Walsh Park for the next steps on that. That'll also continue to be a standing item on our Board of Ed meeting. So we encourage and invite and hope that everybody comes for information on any other information you want at our board meeting. But once again, on behalf of our board and our staff and our students, just thank you for the participation in the referendums, and obviously the margin in which both passed, we're really happy about. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Christian, can you talk about the budget for the school building as well?
Sure.
Okay.
So the school project has been approved. No real update from the last time I spoke to ICB, unfortunately. The project has been approved. The plans of the project have been approved by the State Department of Ed. It's a process that we were told in normal times, so non sort of post-COVID times, takes about 3 to 4 months conservatively. We're now pushing 7 or 8 months, maybe even 9 months at this point, just because of all the projects in New York State that got delayed because of COVID are now being reviewed by the State Department of Ed. So that part we have gotten through. They're doing a final review of our financials that are in place for the project. And once that happens, the project will go out to bid. I want to clarify that the project has been through a referendum that we did 2 years ago, has a ceiling of $8 million, 7 million of which is a public bond that will be spread out for taxpayers over the next 16 years. The other 1 million was already in our capital reserves. We have contingencies in place to make sure that our project does not go above that, even though it was conceived in a lower interest, lower cost time. We have about $1.5 to $1.7 million worth of ad alternates that will be taken off the project if we find that the costs are above what we thought they would be. We have no way to know that yet because, as I said, the project has not gone out to bid. So once it does, we will be in a better position to determine the final cost, but it will not exceed $8 million.
Okay,
We are
thank
being
you.
told that total costs have come down in terms of supplies, more than they were about a year ago, which is good news. But it's all going to depend on who is ultimately awarded the bid and what that looks like. So we hope to start construction within the next few months. And then once we do that, and we're working with our new contractor group, we'll be better able to put out a timeline to the community of what they think that's going to look like and how long it's going to take.
Great, Christian. Thank you for that. Anybody have any comments? And Christian, next time you have something else to add, we'll just put you on the agenda. You just let us know if there's anything new.
Happy to
Okay.
do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Christian. Okay, next up we have George Demenil with a new initiative.
I would like to say a word about the Fishers Island Fund, which is a modest new not-for-profit corporation. The board of directors of the fund is, I am president, Susan Lusker is secretary, Jim Ingram is the treasurer, John McGillian is a member of the board, and Michael Roberts is a member of the board. The purpose of this fund is to raise awareness and alert the Fishers Island community to issues that are important for its long-run survival. One of them is energy. Everyone on Fishers Island, individuals, organizations, know that the supply of energy is a matter of vital concern for the island. But not everybody knows what can be done about it. Not everybody knows, for instance, that there are significant new subsidies and incentives that in some instances radically reduce the cost of energy supply and energy conservation. We think that we can help pulling together that information and showing how Fishers Islanders can benefit from it. We look forward to sharing the information that we are able to gather with the organizations on the island that are already working hard to address these issues. the Fishers Island Utility Company, the FITCO, ICC, and others. Now, energy supply is not the only important issue facing the island, but it is where we think that it's useful to start. And the best way for me to briefly give you a sense of what it is that we're trying to do is to describe what we hope and what is our first project. To organize an independent study involving 11th and 12th graders at the Fishers Island School, doing an energy audit of a home whose occupant wants to learn what concrete steps they might take to reduce the cost of energy. The student will learn how to use a blower door, a thermal camera, energy conservation programs, etc. The occupant will learn how to reduce costs. The Fishers Island Fund will pay all of the expenses so that the audit doesn't cost the occupant a penny. And the student gets to learn a lot about issues that everybody is talking about, and also to learn practical working knowledge that can be useful down the road. The student also has an experience that could perhaps be helpful in a college application. For more information on the Fishers Island Fund, please look at our new website, Fishers Island Fund, all one word, .usa. The Fishers Island Fund, I should emphasize, is not a part of ICB. We have applied for 501c3 status. We know, and we've been told, that's going to take maybe 6 months. Who knows? In the meantime, John, you have a question.
Yeah, just say, and I think you've now enlisted Christian on this effort as far as the school goes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Christian Arsenault and Adam, what is the name of the teacher?
Adam Murray, George.
Murray, that's right. Adam Murray, we've been in touch with them, and I don't want to speak for someone else, but I think that both have expressed real interest in the project, and I think we're moving right along. We have a potential candidate. We have a candidate, I think. So we look forward to starting on February 1st. With a work study project. The initial starting costs are not going to be great. We believe that there are a couple of potential donors that we can contact who will be able to help us off the starting block. And once we have demonstrated that this is something that's useful, then I think we will ask everyone in the community who can to contribute. And hopefully that'll come sooner rather than later. That's it for the moment.
George, you just got a very positive comment from Alex Norton, who says, yes, 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 this is fabulous. Sustaining Fishers, how can I help? Count me in, genius. The youth are so concerned about the environment and global warming issues, engaging the youth, exclamation point. So I think that slant towards the youth about educating the youth is a very good one. And I think hopefully it'll be very helpful to the community.
Alex, thank you for the interest, and we've got to get in touch as quickly as possible because yes, we certainly can use help.
Great. Well, thank you, George. Sounds like a great initiative, and just keep us posted. Next up is was going to be Tom Sargent, but unfortunately the poor guy got COVID. So he cannot, he was going to talk about the latest on the dredging issues. And it's still kind of in limbo, but at this point, he did say to me that it looks like there could be some real dredging and the waste could go within Connecticut waters, and which is right near us. So it's definitely a matter of concern, and he's going to get back to us. But I know the Conservancy has been working on this and engaged lawyers over the years, and hopefully the next meeting we have, he'll give us a full report on what's going on. Anyway, so next up, Lucinda, about the ferry park. Lucinda there?
You have to unmute,
There,
Lucinda.
I'm unmuted. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to explain what Ferry Park has been for a while. It's been a journey. And first off, reflecting on this project, I believe it was in part inspired by Joni Mitchell. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. So
Oh.
it has taken over 10 years, plus a tremendous amount of patience, talent, and cooperation to realize this dream of creating the newest park on Fisher's Island in a parking lot. This initiative became possible only due to an unpredictable confluence of people taking an interest in what was not too long ago that dilapidated area of the island. To revisit a bit of the history, to revisit a bit of the history, the following occurred within a few years after the community center was established. Mary and Brad Burnham initiated the rescue of the ordnance building. Todd and Billy transformed the warehouse into a residence and architect studio. Lighthouse Works renovated the annex building and created artist studios. Jeb Cook became the manager of the Ferry District and tidied up the ferry property surrounding the Fisher's Island docks. And very importantly, Silver Eel Cove required dredging. We were all agreed that our island gateway could use an upgrade and that creating a park on that water could do that, accomplish this. And the idea was to create a place benefiting this beautiful island. And that particular site is one of the first impressions that one has of the island arriving on the ferry and one of the last leaving. So we imagined this beautiful space for people to wait for the ferry and to wait bye-bye as it departs. And plus it's a beautiful place to watch the sunsets. So Todd and Billy were the first people to endorse this project and for years have helped drive it forwards, generously donating their time, inspiration, and studio design resources. David Burnham, wearing both his Conservancy and Race Rock hats, was involved from the beginning with ideas about structure, design, timing, and plant material. David ensures that all plant material is native, salt tolerant, and appropriate for the conditions of this very exposed site. Jeb Cook, wearing both his Conservancy and ferry hats, coordinating with the ferry commissioners, designated a portion of that parking lot to be repurposed into a park. And as a consequence, they created even more parking spaces in the large lot behind the annex across from the freight building. To obscure the remaining parking between the annex and the water, we wanted to create a park with height. And this was a win-win opportunity to create this natural screen and to repurpose the silver eel dredge spoils with upland reuse. It took many more years than initially imagined to get our hands on those dredge spoils in order for the project to be accomplished. One of my first successes was working with the commanding officer of the New London Coast Guard station. we want to replace their ugly chain link fence that surrounds the Coast Guard house there at the docks. Contacting them was made possible through RJ Burns, who managed the New London terminal, and he had served in the Coast Guard. Remarkably, the commanding officer and I came to an agreement, we bartered, that if the ferry park would purchase the fencing, the Coast Guard would install it, and this saved us about $25,000. On the topic of funding, this project was only made possible by generous donations from approximately 20 island organizations and families. The initial support came from the Sanger Fund, which had a great benefit of giving the project the gold seal of approval, making it easier to approach other funding sources. The major financial donors were the Sanger Fund, Lois and George de Menil, and Billy Tsien and Todd Williams. In total, I raised approximately $100,000, and that covers the expenses to date with reserves for further tweaking and maintenance. Tom Sargent, Christian Peterson, and the Conservancy Board have been instrumental in advising and administering the project. We've worked with the town of Southold, engineers, planning, and board. A huge shout out to Jeb and the ferry commissioners for finally getting that dredging project done. We worked with Mary and Brad Burnham and Nate Malinowski, who for Lighthouse Works requested that the park design include a wide path for a large construction vehicle to access the sculpture plinth twice a year. Once the dredge spoils were in place, Race Rock created our design with a bulldozer. And once the dredge spoils desalinated, Race Rock added soil and planted when and where appropriate. As you can see, Ferry Park is very much a public-private initiative and was only made possible thanks to a great number of talented and generous individuals. Thank you. Now that it has been finally realized, it's still a work in progress, and we hope that it'll be enjoyed by many for years to come. Thanks, John.
Well done, Lucinda. Really, I think it's a beautiful addition to the island. And we have a question here from Trudy. She says, wasn't this part of the Yale study to develop that whole area? Where did that ever go? Anybody have an answer to that?
This park was not at all related to the Yale study.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you hope the, did you say you're going to try to extend this all the way to? Didn't I hear you say that?
That's a question for Jeb and the ferry commissioners. No, we kept it very modest because we didn't want to take up parking places. But that's not.
But is there a way of getting a path all the way out to Race Rock? Is that a possibility?
Oh yes, there is a path now. One can go along that berm and all the way to the ordinance. And I know there's been talk of putting a bridge or two. One can walk. I've walked from the South Beach, the entrance at Hay Harbor Golf Course, all the way around to Ferry Park. It can be done if you're a little bit of a billy goat. It's definitely doable. It's wonderful, and be great to formalize a West End path. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, we'll keep that in mind because I think it's a great start. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you so much, Lucinda. That was excellent. And now we have Jeb up here talking about the ferry and other issues. Please, Jeb.
Thanks, John, and nice report, Lucinda. Good evening, everyone. This is a little ferry update here. Winter is upon us, or soon to be here, and with winter, I want to, as everybody knows, we at the ferry have weather delays or cancellations that come upon us during the course of the next few months. And with that, we're constantly watching the weather reports, and any cancellations or delays will be brought to you via our email blasts, Facebook, Instagram, Fishnet. So keep an eye out. We do our best, or our goal is to get the word out at least 24 hours ahead. I can also give you a hint that if any of you have one of these weather apps and they show wind, like the app Windy, wind out of the west is our biggest problem. And it's wind that's greater than 35 knots. That tends to give us trouble. So that may help you foresee what's coming down the pike. Furthermore, moving on to Parkhurst Road. Parkhurst Road is definitely, I gotta say that our board is well aware of the issue. We ask you to stand by as we determine our best path forward with that project. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but listening to Louisa in her report, acknowledging that the town may be doing a paving project. It only makes sense that if that was to happen sooner than later, that the ferry, if the ferry or our partners were to undertake that paving, that we piggyback on a town project. That is, we could share the mobilization and demob of equipment.
Jeb, isn't there an issue that if they do move the waste management plant there to another place, then maybe it's not worthwhile to improve the road at this point? Or is it, in other words, what do you think of that? Is that
Yeah.
in the back of your mind about whether you should bother to go through with this?
So that comes under path forward. We don't know what waste management has for plans in the next few months or years. So we can't answer that. But yes, if waste management isn't going to be down that road anymore, there really isn't any reason to pave that road. Good point, John.
Right. No, I don't have an opinion. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
And I did hear from Cindy Cook, who says, why don't you just fix the potholes and not make it such a big project? Is that ever?
Yeah, or fix the potholes or remove the asphalt patches that are on the surface of the concrete. I mean,
I see.
that's definitely an option.
And is this something that you need contributions from the Waste Management District and Southold, or is this something the ferry can do themselves?
We would certainly like contributions, and I don't expect the town to help us out, but the town would help us out if we could piggyback on a project that they already have going. This would be a public works project involving public rates.
And have you spoken to the Waste Management Board?
No, I haven't. And we have been in touch, but they've got a board meeting later this month that they're going to discuss the matter. So I'm told.
Okay, very good. Well, if you get any update, just let us know and we'll put you on the agenda again.
Sure. I got a couple other things.
Go ahead, please go. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, in the near future, you all will become aware there will be a public meeting that the ferry will have. We have two projects that are coming up. One that we're looking to do is replacing the pilings, the dolphins in New London. We did it a few years ago on Fisher's Island. The ones in New London are close to 40 years old, if not more than 40 years old. And they are at the end of their service life. So we need to replace those, and there'll be a bond issue for that, as well as replacing our corner ramp on Fisher's Island. That is certainly near the end of its useful life. So those are some projects, and there'll be a public hearing on that. And lastly, the board has tasked me with initiating the effort towards replacing one of our ferries, a long-term project, but we're starting to talk about it.
Jeb, you've mentioned to me privately that you went to a conference in the last 6 months or so, and haven't you even looked at electric ferries? Is that ever a potential choice?
Yes,
option?
electric ferry is definitely an option. However, I'm not sure it's necessarily feasible. I've met with the folks at the Coast Guard Museum. The Coast Guard Museum, of course, is being it's underway right now, and they're going to be bringing in electrical service. And so I did approach them and say, with you bringing in electrical service, which is a challenge because of the Amtrak, the railroad, if we could piggyback on that. Of course, they asked, well, how much power do you need? And so I've gone to one of our ABB who would do some electrification, and they came back with a very large number. And I've shared that with Martha's Vineyard Steamship Authority, and they had a similar number of 4 megawatts, and 4 megawatts in the town of Woods Hole would cause a brownout every day on a daily basis. So I'm not sure that electrification is in the cards, but
Is in the cards, yeah.
we could certainly consider a hybrid option.
Right. Okay. And can you give us an idea? What does it? You say we might need a new ferry. What does a new ferry cost?
Ferries are expensive. They're you know, I'm going to throw out 15 million, but it can go up or down depending on propulsion, size, you know, what we put on the ferry. Of course, we would like to see some ADA elevator options and things like that.
And how badly do we need a new one?
Our ferries are specific. The Montauk, I think, is 35 years old, 1978, and it is. Those ferries are getting more and more expensive to maintain every year. So they are at the nearing the end of their useful life for us.
And Jeb, the process, if we were to get a new ferry, we go through the government to do that. Is it a bond, or how does it work?
It's bonding and grants. I'm already looking at grant options, but I would definitely grants would be a big part of this effort. And
Okay.
we have bonding capacity as well.
Well,
We being the ferry.
Jeb, I'm happy to see you're on top of all this. We're lucky to have you, and thank you for that. So just keep us posted, and again, we'll put you on the agenda if you have anything new to tell us. Any questions out there for Jeb? Okay, next we've got Staley. Talk about health insurance and anything else, please.
Hi, I wanted to just make a quick announcement that we've talked about a health insurance survey going out to the community. And we got some pushback that people didn't really want to do a survey and they didn't want to put too much information out there. So we crafted it differently. And I have a letter out there that sort of gives a summary of what the challenges are of getting health insurance. And then at the bottom, it asks who would be interested in buying New York ACA insurance if they could use it to see Connecticut doctors. And the second question is, who would be interested in switching from the insurance they already carry to New York ACA if they could use it in Connecticut? So those letters they've been distributed to a few people just randomly that we've seen, and they're passing them around. There's a stack of them at the post office bulletin board that anybody can take, and it's also listed on Fishnet, and I just put a link up in the chat box. So anyone if we could just spread the word that we have to know how many people are interested in this before we can move forward. So
and to give you your perspective too, Candy Whitman had worked on this as well, and she said she only had 2 people really take advantage of the contact she made in Lee Zeldin's office. So we really need double-digit numbers to make this a worthwhile effort, and so because we'll have to negotiate, I assume, Staley, with New York and Connecticut. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so. I believe so. And yes. And then the only other thing that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, and maybe some of you have been on Fishnet and know this also privately, but we've lost 4 very strong members of our community in the last 10 days of November. So I think it's important to take a minute to acknowledge and honor Susan Dunwoody, Natalie DuPont, William Koiker, and Andy Gilliard.
Andy
And
Gilliard.
I thought it was in reading Susan Dunwoody's obituary on Fishnet, I thought there was a very poignant line in there that said that there's nothing that brings out love more than recognizing the potential of loss. And we are a tiny community, and it's always sad to lose people.
Mm.
Well said, Staley. Anyway,
Oh.
it's a lot of people. Wow. I don't think we have anything else on our agenda here. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, either I'm pushing people too aggressively here, but now it's only 5:50 here. Or are we just being efficient here? What do you think, Jeb? So shall we end it?
I have a question. Am I allowed to
Okay.
ask a question?
Please, Diana.
This would
Yeah.
be for Staley. Do we have a completion date for the paddle courts?
No completion date yet. The concrete posts have gone into the ground, and they came last weekend and they put the horizontal support structures on top of the concrete posts. And we were expecting them maybe today, but we're not quite positive, but any day now, any day now, they're supposed to put the courts together. And as I understand it, they go up kind of like Lego blocks. You know, they go very quickly when they put them up. I've never watched paddle courts being constructed, but it's supposed to go very fast. So we have our fingers crossed that they might be completed and able to play on by Thanksgiving. So that would be a tremendous fun if it happens. So we're waiting and watching.
Great,
That'd be
thank
great.
you.
And we should also know, we're not going to have a meeting in December, but we will have one in January. Is that right, Staley?
I think that's what we talked about.
That's
Yep.
what we talked about, yeah. And if anybody wants to get on our agenda, please reach out to us. And we're just going to try to continue to inform the community about what's going on, and hopefully we make some progress in lots of areas. Anyway, thank you all.
Yes, and wait, in the chat, there's
Oh.
I'm seeing that Susie Allen has mentioned that Jill Rogan passed away in
Oh my God.
October.
Oh
And
my God.
I think that and I think Jane posted a GoFundMe account on Jill's behalf for Christine. So yes, I didn't intend to leave anybody out. I think I was just referring to these people
Okay.
that passed so quickly, but we
Right.
certainly have to acknowledge Jill Rogan as well.
Right.
Also,
Okay,
John, I'd like to say a message. I don't know how to raise my hand. It's Sarah. Trudy is correct. The park was part of the original plan.
Oh,
And
okay.
Trudy was very correct. That was part of the whole island initiative.
Okay, well, good. I think it's a great addition. So hopefully we'll continue on that kind of progress.
And thank you, Staley, for getting those names in. I think that's something that's important to open meetings with if we can. It's been that was all those guys in 1 week. So that was a tough one.
Wow.
Yep.
Sarah and Trudy, was the park in that entire parking lot or just a portion of the parking lot? Maybe one could convince the ferry commissioners we could enlarge it if that's important, or if we want to stick to the Yale plan. I was unaware.
The Yale plan was the entrance to Fisher's Island and making it as available and beautiful as possible. And you'd have to get the Yale plan and reread their description, but it was definitely part of the Yale plan.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your participation, and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Likewise. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
all.